Okay, well, yeah, we can get started. So, hello, welcome. Thank you to everyone for joining this continuing series on karma and purification, hosted by Root Institute in Bodh Gaya, the place where the Buddha manifested enlightenment. So, my name is Tenzin Namjong, and now we are on the third session of karma and purification. And so let's see how much we can get through. We had a request also not only to go through the 35 Buddhas prostration practice, but also to go through the Vajrasattva practice. So let's see what we can do. So let's just first start by adjusting our motivation briefly, thinking that the purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. And therefore, in order that I may be able to benefit all sentient beings in the best way, I myself must first achieve the state of complete enlightenment. And therefore, I need to purify all the obscurations to achieving enlightenment and collect all the causes to achieve enlightenment. And therefore, I need to learn about those various causes and the various practices that lead to the state of enlightenment. And therefore, I'm going to engage in this teaching here today. Okay. So let me first share and we'll review that we have been going through these outlines, from the karma section in Lamrim Chenmo. And in last class, we got up to this two, in particular, the way of purification through the four powers. Okay. And so we'll continue with that. And then we'll go on to the 35 Buddhas practice. Okay. So we have purification through the 4-point powers. And so here in the Lamrim Chenmo, how they're outlined or how they're translated is the power of eradication, the power of applying remedies, the power of turning away from faults, and the power of the foundation. But in another way to do it, they talk about the 4 R's so that it is easier to remember. So the power of eradication is the power of regret. So what this is there's an example that, if you had ingested poison, then you would want to do something to get rid of the poison. So similarly, the power of eradication or the power of regret is to see the faults of your negative actions, to be worried that you don't want to experience the ripening effect of those negative actions, and therefore, wanting to find a means that you can purify so that you don't have to experience the ripening effect of those actions. Okay. So each of these 4 opponent powers purifies one of the particular ripening effects. If you remember, we had, can I go back? We had these exposition of the effects, right? We had the fruitional effects. These are the effects of karma. Fruitional effect, which you remember is getting, for negative karma, getting reborn in one of the lower realms. Then we had the causally concordant effects. We had the causally concordant effect in terms of our experience, which is, for example, for killing, we would then have a short life or be killed ourselves. And then we had the causally concordant effect in terms of action. That means our own actions, which is that having killed in previous lives, we would then, even after reborn as a human, have a likening of killing and engage in those actions again. And I mentioned that Rinpoche always emphasizes, Lama Zopa Rinpoche always emphasizes that this is actually the worst of the ripening effects of our karma, because it is this tendency to then engage in negative actions again and again that then make our suffering in samsara endless. And then we have the environmental effects, right? 1 second. The environmental effects. So for killing, then to be born or live in a place where there is a lot of crop failure, war, famine, droughts, and so forth, things that would make it difficult to sustain life. Okay, so each of those ripening effects are then purified by the 4 corner powers. So here, the power of eradication purifies the causally concordant effect in terms of our experience. Okay. Then there's the power of applying the remedies. Well, here it's already an R, so that's the remedy. We'll get into this in a second. But this purifies the fruitional effect. In other words, the ripening effect of being reborn in a lower realm. And then we have the power of turning away from faults. This is the resolve not to do a negative action again. And then this purifies the causally concordant effect in terms of our action, right? We think, okay, I'm not going to engage in that action. And then that makes it less likely that we will, engage in those actions again in the future. And then we have the power of foundation, which is refuge. Here we can say also refuge and bodhicitta, and that purifies the environmental effects of our actions. So now we'll go into a little bit more detail in terms of the power of applying the remedies. So here in the Shantideva's compendium of trainings, he talks about 6 main categories. So depending on profound sutras, so usually what they talk about, a profound sutra is a sutra that takes as its subject matter emptiness. So many of you who are familiar with some of the profound sutras on emptiness, the Prajnaparamita sutras, you'll see, for example, in the Vajrakara Sutra, which is one of the main famous sutras of the Prajnaparamita. It talks about the various benefits of even reciting the sutra, even writing out the sutra, meditating on the sutra, and so forth. Then one collects, so much merit. So by reciting the sutras, this is one of the main remedies. Then the second is the interest in emptiness. So this means, not just reciting the sutras or copying out the sutras, but even to meditate on the meaning of emptiness. This is actually even more sort of powerful than the mere recitation of the sutras. Okay. So third is dependence on recitation. So here, this is various mantras that we can recite. So the Vajrasattva mantra is one. There's so many mantras, the 5 powerful mantras at the time of death, including Michupa mantra. There's the Kunrik mantra, Namgyal Ma mantra, even Om Mani Padme Hum. There are many of these mantras, and we can, recite that as a remedy. Okay, then we have the dependence. So here, deeds of the Buddha. So also in the 9 traditional preliminary practices within the Gelugpa, one second. Or you can commission, the building of larger statues, stupas. You can print scriptures, things like this. So as we said last week, then of the various types of virtuous actions we can do, then there was one thing that made it powerful in terms of giving. We talked about the giving of material objects, the giving of protection from fear, the giving of love, and then the giving of dharma is most powerful. So here now, by printing scriptures that we then give to others so they can recite, that's a very profound way of giving. Very much merit is created by making images of the Buddha or satsas that people then can use to, on their altar to make offerings to, or even if they don't meet you, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche often instructs his students to imagine that, when you lay out the offerings on your altar, to imagine that you're offering these water bowls or incense or whatever to all the 10 directions, statues, stupas, scriptures, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So in this way, even if you're making the satsas at your home, no one else knows about it. But since they then are, thinking that they're offering to all the 10 directions, statues, stupas, and scriptures, then in that sense, they are then offering to the satsas that are in your room and collecting a lot of merit. So that's why this dependence on images is here in the traditional remedies. Then dependence on worship. So worship here, well, it really is the word chupa. So just like we have in Lama chupa, it means puja. So really it means to offer, make offerings to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then lastly, we have dependence on names. So dependence on names is to recite the names of the Buddhas. So here, that takes us into the recitation of the 35 Buddhist practice, right? So it is important to note that these 6 are just examples, but actually any kind of virtuous action that we do can be a remedy for our negativities. But for the action of to be a complete purification, it has to be actually done with the 4 opponent powers. So, although it's great to recite the profound sutras, to recite Vajrakara Sutra, then rather than just reciting it, if one can do even a brief practice of a going to refuge, generating bodhicitta, and then we usually do the 7 limb prayer. Within that is the limb of regret, and then after to have this last power of turning away from faults or resolving not to engage in those negative actions again. So you can, for example, within the 7 limb prayer at the beginning, generate the mind of regret and also think these actions I'm not going to engage again in the future. Or at the end of our recitation, then we can imagine that we are completely pure. And then as we do in the Vajrasattva practice, we can think that, Vajrasattva tells us that we're now completely pure of all of our negative karma. And then we make this sort of promise to Vajrasattva, or we can do it to any of the Buddhas that we are, practicing in relation to. Okay. All right. So before we go on to the main body of the 35 Buddhist practice, then I think it's just good to mention something at the end of the section within the Lamrim Chenmo, where it talks about the various levels of purification that one can experience. So, of course, the very best level of purification is that we don't experience anything at all from previously accumulated negative karma, right? So short of that, then let's say we would have been reborn in the lower realms for thousands of years, maybe an eon, then we can experience some form of suffering in this life as a human. And that would then, as I said at the beginning, that's why they say that illness is like a broom to purify or sweep away the fruitions of negative karma. So instead of being reborn in the lower realm, in this life we experience a sickness or a headache or being criticized. You'll see that in the Vajrakara Sutra, that the bodhisattvas will be greatly criticized in this life, but the Buddha tells them not to be discouraged because they are purifying or clearing away the negative karma that would normally have them experience suffering in lower realms for countless eons. And then the sort of least form of purification would then be instead of being reborn in the lower realms for let's say 1,000 eons, once you still get reborn in the lower realms, but your time there is reduced. Maybe instead of 1,000 eons, you're only born there for 1 eon. Okay, so that might not seem to be so much, but well, compared to 1,000 eons, then 1 eon, it's like what, 99.9% purification, right? So it still is, quite important to do. They actually, within the Lamrim Chenmo, I think it's in this section. Oh, right. Yeah. It talks about some, actually, oh, right, okay, here. So there's this story in Lamrim Chenmo that Tsongkhapa brings up. He says that, there's, so Lama Tsongkhapa says, it is not definite that some particular persons can eliminate their karma. The Buddha spoke of this in the King of Concentration Sutra. So the king Suradatta killed Supushpa Chandra and felt contrite about it. He built a stupa and made very extensive offerings. 3 times each day he would confess his sins. He did this for 950 billion years. Okay. Even though he maintained his ethical discipline correctly in that way, upon his death, he was born in the unrelenting hell. For 10 or 20 billion eons, he experienced limitless sufferings, having his eyes squeezed out and so forth. Nonetheless, confession is not senseless, for if you do not confess sins, you will experience sufferings that are greater and of longer duration than if you had confessed them. Okay? So, anyway. Then the last thing that Tsongkhapa talks about in this section is, there's a doubt that then can come up. And then you might think that, oh, well, if all these purifications are there, then why would I have to practice restraint about doing negative actions? Can't I just engage in that kind of behavior and then purify them later? Right. So then there's this analogy used that, let's say, you break a limb, right? So if you break a limb, yes, if you get medical attention, it might heal, the bone might fuse again, but it will never sort of be the same as if you had never broken it in the first place, right? And then secondly, although you might purify the negative karma that would then have you reborn in the hells, then actually your progress along the path to enlightenment could still be very much slowed down. Okay, so there's 2 things that go on, right? there is a negative karma that would have us reborn in the lower realms, we can purify the ripening result of that. But still, there might be some obstacle for us to progress along the path. Okay, so there is a couple of quotations here. One is from the Bodhisattva Levels by Asanga. So there he says that you can redress the occurrence of a root infraction through adopting the Bodhisattva vow. However, it will be impossible to attain the first Bodhisattva level in that lifetime. Okay, and then the Sutra Gathering All Threads says that even though you clear away sins, you'll need at least 10 eons to attain the second level of forbearance, which is the second of the 4 levels on the path of preparation. Okay, so yeah, so we still have to, although we engage in these purification practices, we still have to be very diligent. Excuse me. We still have to be very diligent in refraining from engaging in negative karma. Okay. Okay. So that is the main teaching on the outlines of the Lamrim Chenmo in the section on karma. Okay. And now we will continue with, as I said, right? We had this, oops, thanks. The different types of remedies, right? So the 6th was dependence on names. Okay. So now we will go into the okay, hold on 1 second. Okay. So I think Shanti sent out, and I wanted all of you to have, there's this new booklet, okay? Confessions of a Bodhisattva Downfalls to the 35 Buddhas. Yes, do you all have this? Okay, if you, you might have an older one, but this one, they've made some changes to. So I want you all to have this new one. So within this, there's actually some practice instructions that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has sort of added, and that is all fine and good. What I thought actually is first, we'll go through just the regular text as it is, and then later we can go through some of these practice instructions, okay? So if you're sort of following along, then the actual text, it begins here.
Maybe internet problems. Sorry. Venerable, you're frozen. Venerable will be right back. Apologies.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my internet connection isn't great either. So I was saying this particular text, the Bodhisattva's Confessions of Downfalls, is also known as the Sutra of Three Heaps. So it is a sutra, and it is one of the examples of a sutra that does not begin with the words you often see, "Thus I heard at one time," right? So many of you, you'll see, "Thus I have heard at one time" at the beginnings of sutras, but this sutra does not have that. Yet, it is a sutra. So a sutra is um, a treatise given by a supreme emanation Buddha. So the Shakyamuni Buddha taught this, and as the story goes, there are a few different ways that the history of this sutra is described. But one of them is that there was a group of Bodhisattva monks in the Buddhist time who went on their begging round in the morning. And during that time, there was a woman whose son died. And so the different commentaries, some of them, they say that the monks caused that mother's child to die. It was unintentional, but nonetheless, they somehow by accident caused the son to die. And then they went back to the Buddha because, as we know, although if it's an unintentional killing, it is not a complete path of Dharma. Nonetheless, since killing a human is such heavy negative karma in the first place, even if it's not complete by means of those, four factors that have to be there in terms of basis, thought, performance, and completion, then it can still be a great negativity nonetheless. So then the Buddha is said, taught this to the monks so they could purify their negative karma. The other thing you'll see in the commentaries is that, actually, those 35, there were 35 bodhisattvas, and they didn't cause the child's death, but they met the mother whose child had just died, and the mother was asking for some kind of practice to help purify the negative karma of the child. And therefore, the Buddha taught this sutra. Okay, so in any case, the thought is here that this practice of confession to the 35 Buddhas is extremely powerful. These 35 Buddhas that we're going to get into, soon. Then they all, while they were training on the path, then they all made particular prayers that they, after they were enlightened, after they became enlightened, then anyone who recites their name would be able to experience tremendous purification of negative karma. So we had mentioned this before, that all the various Buddhas, while they're still training on the path as bodhisattvas, they each make sort of unique prayers that will then come to fruition when they receive enlightenment. So we had talked about Amitabha Buddha, who made prayers that beings who had faith in him, made offerings to him, and so forth, generated bodhicitta, would be able to be reborn in his pure land of Sukhavati very easily. We see that the medicine Buddhas, for example, they made very strong prayers. One, to help beings of this particular degenerate time, the Kali Yuga, and made prayers that beings that rely on them, make offerings or do their practice in this degenerate time, they would experience quick success in their practice. So that's one of the reasons why Lama Zopa Rinpoche always emphasizes this medicine Buddha puja, even if we're not doing it for people who are sick, but he always emphasizes that it's very good for success, because the medicine Buddhas had made these prayers for beings, or to be able to help beings in this degenerate age. So anyway, various Buddhas had various aspirational prayers while they still were training on the path, and these 35 Buddhas had the aspiration to help beings purify their negative karma. So then when they received enlightenment, then of course, one of the powers of the Buddha is the power of prayer. So those prayers were then, came to fruition. Okay. So let's go back now to the actual text. Okay. So it's the Confession of Downfalls, Tung Shak in Tibetan. And the actual text starts with this, Namo Jangchu Sempe Tungwa Shakpa. So here in the commentaries, right, it does say that, those 35 bodhisattvas who this sutra was first taught to, they were bodhisattvas that were not Aryas, but still on the path of accumulation. So yes, bodhisattvas who are not Aryas still can engage in negative actions. So there is the sort of actual practice that is done for bodhisattvas, like the kind of intended disciples, those original first 35 bodhisattvas to whom this sutra was taught. But then more generally, even us, if we're not bodhisattvas, of course, we can engage in this practice. And, by engaging in it, we can still reap the benefits of performing the 4 opponent powers and purify negative karma. So don't think this is only for bodhisattvas, okay? If you're not a bodhisattva, okay. So, homage to the Confession of Bodhisattva's Downfalls. And then here we have the 4 opponent powers. So here is the power of the basis, so taking refuge. And now we say, I, and then actually say your name. Throughout all times, take refuge in the Guru, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. Okay. So usually in the commentaries, then it typically stops here and then talks about the practice of going to refuge. So of course, to do it in a very detailed way, it'd probably take too much time. But I think many of you know, especially if you have gone to or gone through some of the Lamrim teachings, that the refuge is also in the path shared with a small scope practitioner. And in that, it has the identification of the objects of refuge. So here, normally they talk about the 3 jewels, or the 3 rare sublime ones, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, all right? And then it talks about why they are worthy objects of refuge. And then it talks about how, one actually goes to refuge to them. So here in this text, it also then talks about the Guru. So then, as many of you know, then as we do in the normal food offering prayer, the Guru, we say the Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, the Guru is the Sangha. Also, the Guru is the creator of all happiness. To all Gurus, I make this offering. So here, we can make this practice into a Guru Yoga practice. We can always make all of our practices into Guru Yoga practice by, we'll get into this next time, but we have already visualized in the space in front of us our guru in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. And then from his heart comes the rays where these 35 Buddhas are sort of at the tips of the end of the light rays. So we can think that our guru is then manifesting as these 35 Buddhas. And then we can, recall the kindness and qualities of our guru and, think that our guru is now appearing in this way to help us purify our negative karma. Okay. So then, more generally speaking, this practice of going for refuge, it says that there are two causes, fear and faith. So here, fear, it's normally talked like that, but actually it's more that we see some unsatisfactory condition that we don't want to experience. So actually for all of the three types of spiritual practitioner in the Lamrim, or the three scopes, they each have a different sort of means of going for refuge. So the so-called practitioner of small capability, then the primary thing that they fear or don't want to experience is the suffering of rebirth in lower realms. Okay, so by generating that kind of fear and not wanting to get reborn in lower realms, then you can turn to the three jewels for refuge. And then the so-called middle capability practitioner, then they fear or don't want to experience the general sufferings of samsara. So not only the suffering of lower realms, but even the higher realm existences that are characterized by karma and afflictive emotions still are characterized by being in the nature of suffering. So they don't want to experience any of samsara, right? Then the great scope practitioner, or the practitioner of great capability, well, there's two ways of explaining what they fear. So one is that they fear still the samsara, but combined with that, the mind of great compassion, wishing to free all other sentient beings from suffering as well. The other way that it is described is by saying that the great capability practitioner, they fear, the subtle obscurations within their mental continua that prevent them from attaining the full state of enlightenment. So either way, we have those three levels of going for refuge. And now for us, although we might not be bodhisattvas, we might not be great scope practitioners, we should try to have this mind of bodhicitta and have the kind of Mahayana way of going for refuge. Okay, so all of those three ways of going for refuge, we see that whatever we're not trying to experience, or probably better to say, whatever we're trying not to experience, then the three jewels of refuge, if we devote ourselves to them, if we practice in accordance with what is taught by our guru, taught by the Buddha, taught in the Dharma, then that will have the power, the ability to protect us from whatever of the three undesirable things that we don't want to experience, right? So, the small scope practitioner not wanting to get reborn in lower realms, then by following the Dharma teachings on abandoning non-virtue, right, then, one can abandon the cause for lower rebirths. And then the middle scope practitioner not wanting to experience samsara at all, then by, adopting the Dharma, practicing, and especially by attaining the Dharma jewel of true path and true cessation within their own mental continua, then they're able to be free of all of samsaric rebirth. And then the great capability practitioner, by adopting the Mahayana Dharma of, rooted in bodhicitta, and then, training in the Dharma of the six perfections, and in particular, the Prajaparamita, or the perfection of wisdom, this mind realizing emptiness, conjoined with the mind of bodhicitta, then one can purify even the subtle obscurations that prevent one from being a Buddha. So in that way, then for any of those three levels of practitioner, the Dharma, the three jewels of refuge are appropriate, and will allow any of those three practitioners to achieve whatever goal they're seeking with their practice. Okay? So we'll go back for the text. So because of that, because we see, the qualities of the three jewels of refuge, we see that they have the power to, protect us or free us from whatever we're not trying to experience. Then with a mind, from the depths of our heart, we then take refuge. Okay? And here, throughout all times. So it's important to note, just like we say, in the normal refuge verse, right? I go for refuge till I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, right? So I take refuge until I am enlightened. So it is not just, we have some problem today and we take refuge, and then tomorrow our problem is gone, and then, we forget about our refuge. But actually, in the other formulation, until we are enlightened, here also throughout all times means, even in future lives, until we are enlightened, we take refuge in the three jewels. Okay, so now that is the remedy. Sorry, the opponent power of the basis. Okay, now we have the opponent power of the remedy. Okay, which is actually to recite the Buddha's names. So here again, we will have the sort of commentary on the practice instructions. But here, then there's these 35 Buddhas, the first of which is the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni. So a few things to mention here. All right. So in the original text, then it has this, in the Tibetan. Actually, it doesn't. I don't think it even says Tumpa, but it definitely doesn't say Lama. Might say Tumpa. Anyway, but either way, it has this full, long sort of, to the teacher Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni. Okay, but then the rest, you see this Deshin Shekpa, which is Tathagata. Okay, so here, then in the original text, it doesn't say Tathagata. Okay, so I think most of you know, but this practice was done by Lama Tsongkhapa in particular, and when he went to retreat in Wolka, due to the advice of Manjushri, he took 8 disciples and went off to do retreat. And there they, at the beginning, they engaged in very intense preliminary practices, and they did Lama Tsongkhapa did 100,000 prostrations to each of the 35 Buddhas. Okay, the normal way is to do 100,000 prostrations. Okay, but Lama Tsongkhapa did 100,000 in relation to all 35. That means 3.5 million prostrations. Okay, and while he was doing that prostrations, while he was doing this practice, then he had a vision of the Buddhas. And at first he could see the bodies of the Buddhas, but not the Buddha's head. And therefore, he thought, it's a bit maybe disrespectful just to, just say the name without a kind of epithet at the beginning. So then he started to say, this epithet, Deshin Sherpa, at the beginning. And then he was able to see the Buddhas, in their entirety, including the head. So then in the Gelugpa tradition, you'll now see in the prayer books, it'll have this Deshin Sherpa in front of the rest of the Buddhas. I did see in a Kagyu text, they keep it in the original and they don't have the Deshin Sherpa. Anyway, that's just for your knowledge. So you should also know this text, there are a few major commentaries. So I had sent out, or Shanti sent out in the email, there's two things that are available for download for free from FPMT website. The third one is this text. It's a more extensive commentary on the preliminary practice of prostrations. Okay, so it has a few commentaries by Lama Zopa Rinpoche as well on the benefits of prostration. Actually, a commentary on this 35 Buddha practice. So in that, he mentions that there are a few commentaries on the 35 Buddhist practice, and he mentions one by Atisha, who you know was the great Indian master who came to Tibet. Now, in my own research, I couldn't find Atisha's commentary. So I asked one of my colleagues, and also he hadn't heard of it. So I'm going to do more extensive research on that. But for now, there are two very famous Tibetan commentaries. Well, there's actually many, but the two most widespread. One second. So there's a short commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa's one of his heart disciples, Gyaltsab Rinpoche, or Gyaltsab Dhamma Rinchen. And then there's another commentary by the very prolific writer, Chone Drakpa Shedrup. And he was a great master from Saramay, and he has a very extensive collected works, volumes and volumes of texts that he wrote. And so he also has a commentary on the 35 Buddha practice. So in preparing for this commentary, I mainly relied on those two. And then there is this other commentary, the Everlasting Rain of Nectar, that was given by Geshe Jampa Gyatso, who many of you know was a great teacher at Lama Tsongkhapa Institute in Italy for many years. In this text, he gives a commentary of the 35 Buddhist practice, and his source text is a short commentary by the Tibetan master Sangye Yeshe, who was one of the teachers of Gelwa and Sapa, the first Panchen Lama. Well, there's some little bit of debate about that. So many of you probably heard of Gelwa and Sapa, right? You heard? So Gelwa and Sapa was famous for being able, well, he was one who manifested enlightenment within 3 years. So there are some examples of, masters becoming enlightened in one brief lifetime of this degenerate age. Many of you know Milarepa. So Milarepa, it is said he attained enlightenment within 12 years. But Gelwa and Sapa, he was known for, doing that within 3 years. And unlike Milarepa, who bore many hardships, you know the story of all the hardships he did serving his guru Marpa, then Gelwa and Sapa didn't have to do all that. So within Gelugpa circles, it says that, That's because whereas Milarepa practiced, mainly the Chakrasambhara Tantra, then Gyalwa and Sapa followed the unique tradition found within the Gelugpa of practicing the three main highest yoga Tantra deities of Guhya Samaja, Chakrasambhara, and Vajra Bhairava or Yamataka. And because of this combination of three deities, then he was able to make a lot more quick progress along the path and attain enlightenment in only 3 years. So anyway, the other great disciple of Lama Tsongkhapa, Khedrup Je. So it is said that his incarnation was Gyalwa and Sapa, and then Gyalwa and Sapa's incarnation was Panchen Losang Chögyен. So Panchen Losang Chögyen then was the or Panchen Losang Chögy Gyaltsen was another prolific author. He wrote the Guru Puja, which many of us recite on a daily basis. Many of you participate twice a month during the silk offering. Sorry, I'm laughing because I see Louise's cat come into the screen. So anyway, in any case, so then what was I saying? Oh yes, so this other commentary was written by Sangye Yeshe, who was the teacher of Gyalwa and Sapa. So anyway, this text by Jampa Gyatso, Geshe Jampa Gyatso, relies on Sangye Yeshe's commentary. Okay. All right. So like that. Now, in this part of the text, right, in the commentaries, when it goes through the Buddha's names, then there is the explanation of the various benefits of reciting these Buddha's names. Okay. Sorry. My nose is very runny, so I have to keep, dealing with it. So in any case, there are two, the two commentaries that I relied on, that by Chone Drakpa Shedrup and Gyaltsab Dhamma Rinchen, okay, Gyaltsab J, they have a little bit different explanation of the benefits. So, but what both the commentaries say is that, it's very important when giving a commentary of, this text to go through the benefits of reciting each of these Buddha's names, and then one will feel more joy and enthusiasm in doing the practice. Later, when we see Lama Zopa Rinpoche's own commentary on how to make the practice most beneficial, he's saying, since the purification is coming through the recitation of these Buddha's names, that one tries to, recite them as much as possible while doing the prostrations, so not just while we do one full-length prostration to be satisfied with saying this one time, right? But, when we do the practice, like for example, within one full-length prostration, to keep repeating, again and again and again, very quickly, so that we can get maybe 5, even 7 recitations in during the time we make one long prostration. This is one other reason why it's very good to recite, until we can get it by memory, and then once we have it in memory, then our recitation will become, very quick. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So in any case, both the commentaries that I consulted, they say for this first, Buddha, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, then the benefits of reciting is it purifies 10,000 eons of negative karma. But Rinpoche, Lamazo Rinpoche, he found in the Kangyur, or the collected works of the Buddha, the various sutras and so forth, that there is a source that says it's actually 800 billion eons of negative karma that is being purified. Okay, so it's a lot more. Okay, yeah, like that. Then the next one, thoroughly destroying with Vajra essence. Then it says, yes, 10,000 eons of negative karma. Next, radiant jewel. So here, Gyaltsab Je's commentary says 10,000 eons, and then Drakpa Shedrup's commentary says 31,000 eons. And then the King Lord of the Nagas says 1,000 eons. Gyaltsab Je's commentary, 1,000 eons. In the other commentary, 8,000 eons. Pao De, Army of Heroes, then 1,000 eons. And then Drakpa Shedrup's commentary says it purifies the negative karma of speech. Then Pelgye, Delighted Hero, then says 2,000 eons. Gyaltsab Je says 2,000 eons. And then Drakpa Shedrup says the negativities of mind. Okay. Then Rinchen Me, or Jewel Fire. Okay. Gyaltsab Je says the negative karma of 2,000 eons. And Drakpa Shedrup says the negative karma of appropriating from the Sangha. Appropriating from the Sangha. So later in the actual prayer after the recitation, it says, whatever possessions of stupas, possessions of the Sangha, or possessions of the Sangha of the 10 direction that have appropriate, made others appropriate, or rejoice in the appropriation of. Yes, remember that? So yeah, this is a very heavy negative karma. So we'll get into that in a little bit when we get to that part, but I'll just go through it here, okay? So next, Rinchen Dao, or the Jewel Moonlight. Then Gyaltsab Je says 8 eons, and Drakpa Shedrup says 1 eon. And then Tongwan Dunya, meaningful to see, Gyaltsab Je says 1 eon. And Drakpa Shedrup says the negative karma of criticizing the Arya Sangha. So Rinchen Dawa, Jewel Moon. Then Gyaltsab Je says it purifies the 5 uninterrupted negative karmas. Okay, so this is going to come later, but yeah, probably it's good to mention now. So these 5 uninterrupted negative karmas, sometimes it's called the karmas experienced without break, or it used to be translated as the 5 heinous deeds. So these are extremely heavy negative karma. So it is, to kill one's father, to kill one's mother, to kill an arhat, someone who's achieved nirvana, with a malicious intent, to draw blood from the Buddha. So here it is said that one cannot kill the Buddha, but we saw in Devadatta's story that one time he wanted to kill the Buddha. Well, many times he wanted to kill the Buddha, but once he lets a crazed elephant loose and thinks that the elephant will go and charge after the Buddha and kill him. Well, what ends up happening is a rock comes and nicks the Buddha, and some blood comes out. So this is drawing blood from the Buddha with malicious intent. Okay. And then the last of the 5 uninterrupted negative karmas is creating a schism in the Sangha. So, schism, causing the Sangha to split into 2. So this again, Devadatta tried to do, sort of arguing with the Buddha, and then saying that the way that the Sangha was run was not good. Actually, he had some other kind of rules that he thought that the Sangha should adhere to, including not taking milk, not taking meat, not putting salt in the food, and a few sort of rules like this. So then he had his followers then sort of leave the Buddha's own kind of Sangha, and they sort of broke away. So of course, doing that and having the infighting within the Sangha, within the spiritual community, then creates a lot of disharmony that then harms the overall Sangha community. So doing that is also extremely negative karma. So these 5 are called the karmas, or the uninterrupted negative karma. So according to the Abhidharma Kosha, the treatise on Abhidharma by Vasubandhu, there it says that, normally, and I think we went through this last time, even though we might have engaged in some kind of negative action in this life, well, at our time of death, where we're going to be reborn in our next life, then it's, indeterminate, right? But if we, so what that means is even someone who's engaged in a lot of negative action, they could still, if at the time of their death, generate a virtuous mind, they could be reborn in a, good rebirth in the next life. Even if, 99% of the actions they did in this life are negative. But these 5 uninterrupted negative karmas means right at the end of this life, and it says, without even going into the bardo, one will take a rebirth into the lower realms without having an interruption of an intervening life. Okay, and without even getting a bardo rebirth. So some commentaries say that the first 4 uninterrupted negative karmas, one will be reborn in a hell realm, and then the causing a schism in the Sangha, one will be reborn in the lowest of the hell realm, the Narame, or the unrelenting hell, the Avicii hell. But yeah, I've seen that in one commentary. And so even among the 5 uninterrupted negative karmas, the worst actually is the causing a schism in the Sangha. Okay, because when you cause a schism in the Sangha and you damage the Sangha, then you're actually damaging how long the Buddhist teachings will remain in the world. Because it's in general the presence of the Sangha that they're the main ones who are upholding the practice and the study of the Buddhist teachings. So like that. Okay. And while we're on it, then it's probably worth, because later it's going to come in the general confession, where then it talks about the 5 nearing actions of immediate retribution. So these also, they're not as bad as these 5 that we mentioned, but they are to kill a bodhisattva. Okay, now here in the footnote of the general confession, it says killing a bodhisattva in his last life means who is going to attain enlightenment in that lifetime. But in the actual texts of both Dhamma Rinchen and Drakpa Shiru, then it says, Nepala nepe janchu sempa. So a bodhisattva abiding in certainty. And then when I looked in the commentaries, then it says that a bodhisattva abiding in certainty means one who will, in the next 100 eons, become enlightened. Okay, so it's not just the last lifetime, but it's in the next 100 eons. So yeah, anyway, like that. Then there is the committing incest with one's mother, who is an arhat. Okay, so I suppose, yeah, this would also apply, for the women, if one's father is an arhat, to accumulate or to commit incest with one's father, who is an arhat. Okay, and then to kill an Arya being who is not an arhat, right? And then taking the belongings of the Sangha. And then last is with a mind of anger to destroy stupas. Okay, so we have those the 5 nearing uninterrupted negative karmas. We got killing a bodhisattva abiding in certainty, committing incest with a parent who is an arhat, right? Killing an Arya being, a non-arhat Arya being, right? Taking the belongings of the Sangha and destroying a stupa with anger. Okay. All right. So why I'm bringing that up now as well is these next actions. Then, according to Dr. Shedrup's commentary, then these next 10 Buddhas each purify one of those 10, either the 5 uninterrupted or the 5 nearing uninterrupted negative karmas. But Gyaltsab Je, he says that this one, Trima Mepa, or stainless one, yeah, purifies the 5 uninterrupted negative karmas. And Dr. Shedrup says purifies killing an arhat. Okay? And then Sangpa, or pure one, then Gyaltsab Je says it purifies the negative karma motivated by attachment. And Dr. Shedrup says causing a schism in the Sangha. Then the soul of purity. Then Gyaltsab Je says a 10,000 eons of negative karma. And Dr. Shedrup says the uninterrupted karma of causing the Buddha's blood to flow with a mind of malicious intent. And then Chu La, water god. Then Gyaltsab Je says 1,000 eons. And Dr. Shedrup says, here it's interesting, the word he uses is, Drachompa Sun Chinpa. So Sun Chinpa also is sometimes used in the logical texts. It means to sort of repudiate or refute an argument. But here, you see, if one's parent is an arhat, okay, then, as you know, or as maybe you don't know, actually it says in the text that all arhats, okay, even if they're not, ordained before they become an arhat, when they attain arhatship, the fully ordained vows arise in their mental continuum naturally. Okay, so some of you, I've seen, you say, "Oh no, I'm not going to become ordained in this life." Well, if you become an arhat, you don't have a choice in the matter. You automatically, have the vows arise in your continuum. So, as many of you know, then one of the root monastic vows is, not to, is the vow of celibacy. So, if an arhat then engages in sexual activity, then they would, cease to be a monastic. This is a bit of a debate whether this could happen, whether an arhat could break one of their root vows, but nonetheless, it is there in the text. Okay. So next, there is the Chui La, so the deity of the water god. So Gyaltsab Je says it's 5,000 eons of negative karma that's purified. And then Drakpa Shedrup says that it purifies the negative action of killing a bodhisattva who is abiding in certainty, which I mentioned is, one who is within 100 eons will be enlightened. And then the glorious goodness, Gyaltsab Je says 5,000 eons, and Drakpa Shedrup says killing another Arya being. Glorious sandalwood purifies 7,000 eons, and according to Gyaltsab Je, and then according to Drakpa Shedrup, it purifies the negative action of taking the belongings of the Sangha. Then infinite splendor, Gyaltsab Je, again 7,000 eons, and Drakpa Shedrup says the negative karma of destroying stupas. Then glorious light, Gyaltsab Je says you will obtain sort of limitless benefits. And Drakpa Shedrup says it purifies the negative karma motivated by anger. Then sorrowless glory. So for the interest of time, I'll say two benefits. The first one will be from Gyaltsab Je. The second one will be by Drakpa Shedrup. Okay. So here, then it's either the negativities motivated by ignorance or attachment. Then next, the son of non-craving. It is either the negative karma motivated by the imprints. So here, I'm not exactly sure. It's not clear what that means in the text, but because it says bakchaki kune langpe, so it's like motivated by the imprints. So here it says, in the text that even arhats who've abandoned the afflictions completely, still from habituation of having, let's say, engaged in a lot of name calling, right, in the past, they could still just out of habit, call fellow monks, a monkey or some kind of bad name, right? So it's not motivated out of an affliction, but rather out of an imprint. So I think that's what's being referred to here. And then the other way that it is explained is the negativity of not being pleased with the Buddha's descent, or sort of, like Devadatta, for example, sort of being, jealous and not liking that the Buddha is appearing in the world. Okay. Then we have who are we on? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead a bit. Sorry. So, son of non-craving, we have the the negativities motivated by the imprints, or 10,000 eons. Glorious flower is the obscurations of body, or 100,000 eons. Then the pure light rays clearly knowing by play is the obscurations of speech, or 1,000 eons. Lotus light rays clearly knowing by play is the obscurations of the mind, or 7 eons. Glorious wealth is either wasting the sort of belongings of the Sangha, or the imprints of our negative karma. Glorious mindfulness, the negativities. Now here it just says of sort of criticizing or deprecating a person. Okay, but I wonder if that means an Arya being. I'm not sure. Anyway, it just says Kangsak, which is person. And then the other commentary says the negative actions done by body. And then the glorious name, either renown. This is either the negative actions done out of jealousy, or this is the one where I was saying not being pleased with the Buddha's descent. And then what is it? The holding the victory banner of foremost power. Then it's either the negative actions motivated by pride or jealousy. Totally subduing purifies the negative actions done or motivated by all of the afflictions, or those done by pride. And then glorious one, totally subduing, purifies the negativities of sort of causing others to engage in negativities, or those done by slander. And then oh, here we go. Glorious manifestations illuminating all. Both commentaries say it purifies the negativity of rejoicing in others doing negative karma. So here it also mentions later in the commentary that, it's going to say the actions, I've done cause others to do, and rejoice in others doing. So actually it says that this karma that we accumulate of rejoicing in others doing negativities is especially bad, and sometimes, many times, even worse than doing it ourselves or having others do it, because we can imagine that we can engage in negative karma, like, for example, when a mosquito lands on us, it's almost automatic. We just do, or we lose mindfulness, so it's not very strong kind of motivation. But when we hear about others engaging in negative karma, we have if we have a very strong, oh wow, it's so good. For example, there's a story in the text where there was two monks who are kind of rivals, and one of the monks broke one of his root downfalls, and the other monk, seeing his rival, be disgraced and all this, he became very joyful. And so the abbot at that time said that actually the monk who rejoiced although he was still able to stay in the monastery. He didn't break the root downfall. The negative karma he accumulated was worse than the other monk. So that's important to keep in mind. Then we have the second to the last one, the also doing jewel lotus. This is the negative karma of abandoning the Dharma. So yeah, this is another extremely negative action. In the Guhya Samaja root tantra, then it says that even the 5 negative karmas, if one does that, then by engaging in the Guhya Samaja tantra, practicing it, one can achieve enlightenment in this lifetime. But if one engages in the action of abandoning the Dharma, then even if one practices, one is unable to do. So abandoning the holy Dharma, it can be saying, for example, that this teaching, is no good. This is one of the greatnesses of the Lamrim, right? Where it says, one of the greatnesses of the Lamrim is we can avoid the great wrongdoing. The great wrongdoing would be, to say that, those practices intended for the, Shravakas or the people, interested in liberation. Well, we don't have to practice that. We don't have to practice the 4 Noble Truths. We don't have to practice abandoning 10 non-virtues. So those are the kind of, famous ones. But it also says, even something subtle like carrying our Dharma texts along with our shoes, or putting, our cup on a Dharma text, one receives the negative karma of abandoning the holy Dharma. So yeah, very, very heavy. Yeah. Then last one, the King of Lord of Mountains firmly seated on jewel, moon, and lotus. Then it purifies the negative actions of criticizing our guru and degenerating our damsik, or our samayas, or our pledges to our guru. And this is another one that is extremely, extremely heavy. This is actually even worse than abandoning the holy Dharma. So in the past, when Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave commentary on this, he said, even if the rest, you don't have much time, you recite only the rest of the Buddha's names once. This one you should recite 3 times, because this negativity that we engage in relation to our guru is the heaviest, is the most difficult to purify. Okay, so time's up, but we have some good news. Well, depending on how you look at it. So what we thought, because there's a lot more to do, I was thinking we could have some extra sessions. So tomorrow at this time, same time, 4 to 5:30 Indian Standard Time, we'll get together and do this again. We'll again see how much material we can cover. And then next weekend, which will be our final weekend, we'll see if we have a Saturday and Sunday, or just Saturday, or see what happens, okay? So if you can't make it tomorrow at 4, then, well, there's always the video available. So we might have time for one question.
Okay, if no one else has, I can ask Venerable. So in the Lamrim year recently published, I think there's a quote from Lama Yeshe saying, "We are karma, whole life is controlled by karma. We live within the energy field of karma." And then I think Lama Zopa Rinpoche says something about it. So what does it mean energy. How is karma energy?
Okay, sorry, you have to start over. What does it say in the Lamrim?
It's a quote from Lama Yeshe. We are karma. Our whole life is controlled by karma. We live within the energy field of karma.
Oh,
So
well,
how to?
okay. So far be it from me. So you have to understand, part of Lama Yeshe's kind of greatness was that he presented the Dharma to the Western audience in a kind of colloquial manner. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure, but if I had to guess what he was getting at, was just that we are bound by karma. Everything we experience is the ripening of karma we've accumulated in the past, right? We don't have any choice in the matter. So our life is kind of dictated by the ripening of karmic actions. So I think that's what it means by energy. How does that sound?
Yes. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, I think these are the four the four main teachings on karma, right? Everything we experience, or you don't experience something that you haven't accumulated the karmic cause for in the past. So I think that's all it is. Okay, Fariza, you have to unmute yourself.
No, I know I have maybe a silly question. Uh, so the wisdom of emptiness, or the realization of the wisdom of emptiness, reduces the karma or totally. Is it true? Is it? Yeah, am I right or am I wrong?
It's not that simple. It's not that simple. Okay, there's a few things. One is, what kind of wisdom of emptiness are you talking about, right? So, in the remedies, right, where it says taking an interest in emptiness, okay, that can be just sort of meditating on emptiness, thinking about emptiness, having interest, receiving teachings on emptiness, okay. So that's not a full-fledged realization, okay. But it says in the Prajnaparamita text that even taking 7 steps toward a place where the Prajnaparamita is being taught, one engages in so much purification and accumulation of so much merit. Okay, all right, but that's not a realization, any of that. That's just interest. Now, at one point, you get a conceptual realization of emptiness. You realize emptiness, but conceptually. Then, through repeated meditation, you have a direct realization of emptiness. Now, when you have a direct realization of emptiness, you become an Arya being. Okay. If you also have bodhicitta, okay, then you no longer in your continuum have true suffering. Okay, means you no longer take birth, uncontrolled rebirth due to karma and delusion. You take a rebirth, samshindu kawalempa, like however you wish. You direct your rebirth as you like. And then those other sufferings of old age, sickness, and death, you're free from. Okay. So in that way, probably you could say you no longer are experiencing the ripening effect of negative karma. Maybe. For the Shravaka Arya beings, okay, once they've achieved the state of an Arya, they're not Arhats. They no longer accumulate new projecting karma. You know, we were talking about the projecting or throwing karma and completing karma. They no longer have new projecting karma. They have still previously accumulating, imprints of projecting karma. They'll still take rebirth within samsara. Okay. Then when they achieve arhatship, these are the Hinayana arhats. Their body still is, the sakshi nyanagi pumpo. It's contaminated aggregates. Therefore, they still have suffering. They don't have true suffering. They have suffering. Remember, we were talking about Moggallana getting, beaten to death, and other arhats having headaches, having sickness, and so forth. Okay. Then the Buddha is the only one we can say who is fully purified all the negative karma. Even those the Mahayana arhats, the Bodhisattva Aryas, Bodhisattvas, right? They no longer experience suffering, but it's not that they don't have the imprints of suffering in their continuum. So when your question was, does the wisdom of emptiness purify all our negative karma? Then there's those two things. What wisdom of emptiness, in whose continuum, and then there's these different levels of suffering. So yes, we can say it does purify, but there's always, different levels of realization, and there's different levels of purification. The full purification only comes with the attainment of enlightenment. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Okay. I probably answered your question and other questions you didn't even know you had. Okay. Any other questions at this point?
Someone on YouTube has asked, what is the best purification practice for karma purification? Would it be Vajrasattva practice or confession of downfalls?
I'm trying to think of something funny, but yeah, I don't know. I took a antihistamine, so I'm a bit slow. Okay. All right. The first thing is, the best purification practice is the one you do. Okay? The one you do. Now, within the Tibetan tradition, the Gelugpa especially, there are these 9 purification practices or 9 preliminary practices. And, most people, they'll engage in several. Now, there's a couple considerations. So one is, if you have access to a lama with some level of clairvoyance, for example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, if you're one of his students, you would ask for kind of tailor-made preliminary practices, where Lama Zopa Rinpoche's students, they don't just do 100,000 of the 9, but rather Rinpoche will check with his omniscient wisdom and say, okay, for you, you do, instead of doing 100,000 prostrations and 100,000 Vajrasattva, you do 400,000 prostrations, but only 10,000 Vajrasattva, right? Or to some he'll say, not recommend prostrations or Vajrasattva at all, and instead say recite the Vajrakata Sutra every day for the rest of your life. Okay, so what goes on there? Each of us, we have our own kind of karmic propensities. We have our own karmic imprints, and according to our own situation, these different purification practices work in slightly different ways. And therefore, one of these great masters, these great lamas, will then, seeing our karma, be able to advise us what's going to be most beneficial for us in particular. Okay? You understand? So for you, then, if you want to know what's best for you, then you'll have to find someone with that level of, clairvoyance or omniscience. Okay. But maybe then you're saying, okay, where do I find such a person? Or maybe some of you, it's like, oh, I've written Lama Zopa Rinpoche and I've asked him, and I wrote him in 2018, and I still haven't gotten my letter back. So here we can just say a little bit what's in the kind of general advice that's given. So of course, Rinpoche says that for all of us, there's certain practices that we should all do on a daily basis. And the Confession of Downfalls and the Vajrasattva is there as a recommended daily practice for everyone. Now, when you look in the commentary, he is fond of telling this story that, okay, like Lama Tsongkhapa, he did 3.5 million prostrations to the 35 Buddhas. Now, he also did a lot of Vajrasattva. He did hundreds of thousands of Vajrasattva mantras. But that's not very much emphasized in the commentaries, in the biographies of him. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche is fond of telling this story. He asked one of his gurus, Demalocho Rinpoche, why that is. And Demalocho Rinpoche said that, well, in this practice of the 35 Buddhas, one can purify the 5 uninterrupted negative karmas if one does it properly. So there, it seems that it's suggesting that this is more powerful than the practice of Vajrasattva. Okay. Now, with that said, then when you receive commentary, okay, there's different levels of Vajrasattva practice. There is the normal Vajrasattva practice that belongs to the Kriya Tantra. In the Gelugpa presentation of the sets of Tantra, there's 4 levels. And Kriya Tantra, or Action Tantra, is the first level. And the normal one that many people do, well, you'll see Vajrasattva, stand alone without the wisdom mother, without the consort. Then we have the practice of Haruka Vajrasattva, which belongs to the highest Yoga Tantra, the highest kind of level of Tantra. And in that, when it talks about the benefits of the special Haruka Vajrasattva practice, it says that, by doing that practice, one can purify, even the root tantric downfalls, which, okay, this practice of the 35 Buddhas, it's still a sutra teaching, right? It's still belonging to the class of sutra, not tantra. So in that way, it seems that then this practice of Haruka Vajrasattva would be more powerful than the practice of the 35 Buddhas. So, but why not do both, right? I think there's something special in the 35 Buddha practice, because you have the purification of reciting the Buddha's names, and you also have the accumulation of merit through doing the prostrations. Later we'll get into this, but for every atom that your body covers from here until the base of the earth, then for that many eons you'll be reborn as a wheel-turning king, right? So you're not only purifying, but you're collecting a lot of merit. So many times, the Tibetans, when they do the purification, the preliminary practices, they'll do the practice of prostrations first. I mean, there is the the added kind of thing where, you know, as you get older, it might be physically more demanding to do prostrations. So you also do it while, you know, while you're young and relatively in good shape, and before your knee and hip, you know, wear out. Anyway, that's what I had to say. So sorry. To summarize, do both. Do both, and yeah, and do more than just those two as well, right? Do as much as you can, like all the time, until you're enlightened. That's my advice. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So we'll leave it at that for today, and we will get together again tomorrow at 4 o'clock Indian Standard Time. So hope to meet you there. If you haven't downloaded those practices, please do so, because we're going to continue to go through. Okay, thank you very much. Let's just dedicate quickly. I'll do a quick. Oh. Okay, I'll talk about these tomorrow. So we'll just do this. So due to all the past, present, future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization. May be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I promise to pray, and all those whose names have been given to me. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. Then for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as a model of bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Madhunatha's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers, honoring the 3 sublime ones, Savior, myself, and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And last here, to seal with emptiness, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, whom completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you all for participating.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I hope to be in better health tomorrow. Thank you for the well wishes. And